tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime.
Were you a really good parent who did the best they could, and yet your child has decided to be an ungrateful little bastard?
How long have you been estranged from your daughter?
About a year now.
I spent 25 years tolerating her behavior, and I finally just said, I'm done. Enough is enough.
This has started a viral movement.
I hit a nerve.
Is there nothing you could do to help heal that relationship? There's something happening in society right now that nobody really talks about, but it's everywhere. More and more, we're seeing adult children not just walking away from their parents, but putting it all out there for the world to see. And people online are cheering them on. You've probably seen it. TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, they're all buzzing with hashtags like toxic family and no contact. Many people are sharing stories about their families, calling out toxic or abusive behavior, and talking about cutting ties. For a lot of folks, going no contact isn't just about walking away, it's something they actually feel proud about.
This idea that going no contact is like this new millennial thing is just always so funny to me. But I think that these parents forget, like, you raised us to have beliefs of putting ourselves first, of taking care of ourselves, of not letting people use and harm us. And yet when we do that and you're the one who receives the consequences of that, suddenly not okay.
They're also ready to jump on the bandwagon of the child and shame parents who don't deserve it. That's so incredibly wrong.
There's a reason why a lot of people are going no contact with abusive parents. She blames her children for everything.
It's the fault of their narcissistic victimhood mentality kids.
If that person abused you, neglected you, treated you like would you want them to call them, or would you want them to cut them out? End that relationship.
There are definitely situations where walking away is the healthiest choice. Yet here's the thing. Are we actually helping people heal, or just making it easier for them to hit the eject button on their own families? Stats say about 1 in 4 adults is estranged from a parent, and experts think it's only going to get more common. So tonight, we're digging into the big question. Is this just how families work now? And if you cut someone off, is there any way to fix things later? My first guest, Laura, is a mother who says she was totally blindsided when her daughter cut her off. Then Laura went viral on TikTok as the doormat mom after sharing her story. What started as a personal heartbreak turned into a national debate. She wants to speak up for all the parents left wondering what happened.
Are you a doormat mom? Did you do everything in your power to raise incredible adult kids, only to be accused of doing nothing of the sort? You didn't do good enough? They mistreat you? You're possibly estranged? You are not alone. There are thousands of parents in the same boat. You don't have to be alone and suffer in silence because you ended up to be a doormat mom or a dad.
Laura, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Is this difficult for you to talk about?
It's not easy, but I feel like in talking about it, I'm helping other parents, so I'll do it for sure.
This was between you and your daughter, but then you went public with it. Tell me why you decided to go public.
Well, I think the initial reason was because I needed a means to cope with regards to my own estrangement and what had happened, because I had felt so betrayed by my daughter that it was hard to fathom it happening. And I suspected that this betrayal wasn't uncommon, but it was unspoken. And so I took to TikTok to see if I was right. And in fact, I was right in space. It unleashed a tidal wave of other parents who felt the same type of betrayal, where they had been good parents. They had done everything that they could for their children and raising them, had sacrificed, had loved them, hadn't made any abnormal mistakes, weren't abusive, weren't toxic, weren't narcissistic. And their children all of a sudden turned on them in a way that was so unwarranted and so hurtful and crushing to these parents, just as it was to me.
So how long have you been estranged from your daughter?
About a year now.
And how did this begin? Were you okay one day and not the next? Or did this come out of the blue? Did you see it developing? How did this start?
No, it came completely out of the blue. So here's how it began. I received a call from my daughter where she told me that I was not allowed to attend her wedding in Australia. And this was after I had raised her by myself and gave her a childhood that most kids could have only dreamt of as a single mother and a very young widow. I had given the happy couple mine and my late husband's blessing, even though I was concerned about their marriage because they hadn't known each other for too long, had engaged in many wedding dress fittings with my daughter, had agreed to help coordinate the honeymoon, and even had agreed to hold a second celebration in the US for people who couldn't attend the wedding. None of that mattered. I received a virtual phone call one day, a video phone call saying that I couldn't attend and that I could work that out on my own, only to get another one the next week that she wanted me to help gather her paperwork together so that she could, in fact, get married in Australia. And I was so stunned and so crushed. And I didn't even know where to go for it. So I started gathering my thoughts and I went online on TikTok and I started making videos about, feeling like a doormat and thinking that would maybe rally some other parents who had experienced something like this. And a tidal wave exploded. A tidal wave of the parents exploded. And it went from TikTok to Instagram to a Facebook group to a podcast to, and now it's turning into an app. So, parents on the local level, estranged parents can meet and potentially put together support groups. So it's been a whirlwind. And it's something I would have never known about unless I experienced it. So now it's almost become a platform to help.
Clearly, you're not alone. You hit a nerve. A lot of people.
100%. I've hit a nerve, and it's something that was, I guess, hovering in silence because there is shame attached to estrangement between parents and children, and parents are always getting the blame for it, when in fact today that isn't always the case. It definitely is not always the case.
Okay, well, I've got a question for you that's going to be hard for you to address. I'm going to ask you to take a different position than what you've taken. And we're also going to meet a daughter who took her family breakup public and says it was the healthiest move she ever made. And I'm going to ask you guys to have some exchange as well. But first, I'll ask you a question, then we'll add her when we come back.
Today officially marks 7 years being no contact with my mom. I went no contact 5 days after having my son, and it was probably the best and hardest decision I ever had to make in my life. I can have empathy for her struggles and, her upbringing, but that doesn't excuse the way she treated me or did not treat me. I spent 25 years tolerating her behavior, and I finally just said, I'm done. Enough is enough.
Well, that was Kristen opening up on social media about cutting ties with her mother 7 years ago. As a licensed therapist, she says it's not about punishing anyone, it's really about protecting yourself. And I'm going to get to Kristen in 1 second, and I want her to listen to the question I have for Laura and Laura's answer, because I want these two to interact. And Laura, the question I have for you is, make your daughter's argument. If you have to stand in her shoes and make sense of her position as though you were arguing it to a jury, what would be the most logical reason you think she would cut you out of her life? What would be, and you don't set up a paper tiger and tear it down, what would be the most logical reason you could come up with for her cutting you out of her life?
I honestly could not give you a logical reason, because she's not only cut me out, but she's cut her entire family out.
Okay, but that's not answering the question. If you're going to answer the question, if you had to make an argument, what would the argument be?
She just wanted an entirely new beginning without me in her life.
And why?
I couldn't answer that, Dr. Hill. I don't know.
If that's your answer, that's your answer. Now, Kristen, you have an answer for why you cut your mother out of your life. You said you lived with this for 25 years, and you say that your mother disappeared on you in the first grade, the third grade. She was gone for a year. She didn't do things that mothers do when they grow up, and enough's enough and too much is too much. And it just got to a point that you're better off without than with your mother in your life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And did you decide that there's no patching this up? There's no reason that the cost is too high, that she's not reliable? What was your decision?
Yeah, my decision, came after having my son and really realizing, like, I wouldn't do the things that she did to my child, and really coming to that decision that I couldn't have her in my life. And I get that question a lot of, like, could our relationship be patched up? And the answer is I really don't know, because I've never gotten to that point where we have been in a place where that could happen. I've been no contact now for 7 years, and we have not exchanged any interaction in that time. I don't know what I would do if my mom would show up or call me at this point. There are things that would have to happen, boundaries that would have to be addressed, expectations, accountability for the things that she put me throughout our entire life. And the ability to sit in that and have a discussion would just be the starting point for that for us. Like, that's the starting line.
And do you think she would have an inability to own that, acknowledge that, or perform at a different level?
Yeah, I do think she does struggle, and that's a place that I've held empathy for her entire life and my entire life. I understand that my mom, she's a human. She was not a perfect parent, and I didn't expect her to be a perfect parent. What I expected was to be loved and kept safe. And at this point, I was asking, when we went no contact, I was asking for bare minimum. I was asking for a phone call a month and to remember birthdays, and I wasn't getting those things. And so for those small things to not be met, that would, for me, is the bare minimum for our relationship.
And you heard me asking Laura, and this is not your mom, and there is no evidence, no history whatsoever that Laura has mimicked your mother's history in any way whatsoever. She didn't disappear. There's evidence that she had a communicative home. She raised children as a single mother, having lost her husband. And no one challenges that whatsoever. But when I ask her, what argument do you think your daughter would offer? She comes up with zero. And nobody, I've never met anybody that has zero ownership in a relationship and its problems. As a therapist and as an estranged daughter, what do you think about her having zero ability to offer any logical explanation as to why her daughter would have a problem with her?
I don't know their situation. I don't know their relationship in depth, as you said. I think that a lot of times as children who've gone no contact, these are things that we have stated, but sometimes don't align with our parents' view of what might be toxic or abusive or things like that. You know, when I came to my mother about those things, she didn't view them as toxic, even though the rest of the world and textbooks would view them as toxic. And so I think sometimes our viewpoints really impact how we view our own behaviors.
Do you think that estrangement is on the upswing? Do you think this is a trend among millennials and Gen Z that we weren't seeing in generations past? Or do you think these generations are just finding the voice?
I think it's a combination. I would say it was a trend, but not in the trend like skinny jeans are. It is a trend because it is happening more. And I think that is because social media is allowing access to these conversations and this ability to say, oh, this is something that's okay to do when I am harmed. And as far as like this generational piece, this is the thing that happened within my family. My mother didn't speak to my grandmother. I have an aunt that I've never met because she was estranged in our family. And so this isn't just millennials and Gen Zs that are happening. It's just we're the ones who are on social media more often talking about it.
But there's a generational legacy in your family. And that was not the case with you, Laura. This wasn't a generational thing in your family.
No, and let me point out one thing. It wasn't that my daughter went estranged from me. I chose to take the step back, and she came forward and wanted something more from me to give. And when I set that boundary, that's when she went full no contact. So it wasn't as if I had all of a sudden magically became someone I wasn't. She was more than willing to continue to take from me. And I said, no more. So if you want to say that that's the one reason, I'd say that's the one reason I set down a boundary. I do think social media is pushing this along. I think there's a societal conditioning that's happening. I think there are some, there are some bad therapists that are adding to it too. There are some really good therapists that are helping to cure it, but there's a lot of bad therapists that are helping it along too. So, and certainly I don't know the other guests, what her mother did, in her life. And if she truly was someone that couldn't even, send a birthday wish, well, that's definitely is not me, because I would have sent a whole basket of everything. I can't speak to that, but I do know there are many good parents out there that are suffering in a way that they don't deserve to suffer, because they're being lumped into a category that they don't deserve to be in.
Yeah, it runs the full gamut. All right, we got to take a break. Next, a woman who cut her mother out of her life 30 years ago, 3-0, and she's going to tell us why next.
Were you a really good parent who did the best they could, and yet your child has decided to be an ungrateful little bastard?
I don't think I would call it being a good parent when you call your child an ungrateful little bastard. Just saying.
Well, that was Kristen sharing her take on Laura's story. Now, April says she knows exactly how painful it is to be shut out by her child because she's going through it right now. Her adult daughter cut ties with her a year ago, and on top of that, April isn't speaking to her own mom, Karen. Both are joining us tonight. Karen, April, it's been 30 years that you two have really had problems between each other. You've tried along the way. Even a year ago, you've had contact and talked to each other, but this just hasn't worked out. It's been 30 years since there's been peace and harmony between the two of you. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, and do you even remember how it started, or does it even matter now?
I would say it doesn't really matter.
What prompted you to go no contact with your mom? Was it you that went no contact?
It is.
Okay, and do you remember, and does it matter today?
It does matter just because of how painful it is. I don't like to be like that to my mother because she's my mother.
And does it matter because it's continued happening, or was it a one-time thing?
It matters because it's gone on since my childhood.
Okay, and how would you describe it? And then I'm going to let your mother respond.
As a young child, I was constantly told that I would never amount to anything, that I only thought of myself, that I was selfish, that all I wanted was a pity party and I needed mental help. Those words are hurtful.
Karen, is that true?
No, that's not true. I never told her she had a mental problem. I never said those things, April.
You never said any of those things.
No, I did not.
Well, does she have a mental problem then? Because if she's saying that, she must be delusional. Is she hearing voices? Why is she saying that?
I have no idea, but I never told her she was anything that she said.
Okay, why would she have this problem then?
I don't know.
You just have no idea.
I have no idea.
None. If there was one thing you could change, Karen, that you think could heal this relationship, what would it be?
That we could all try to get along together.
If you were going to ask her to forgive you for something, what would it be?
If she would forgive me for, I love her. I really do.
If you were going to ask her to forgive you for something, what would it be?
I have no idea.
You have no way to express any transgression across 30 years that you would say, look, I shouldn't have been this way, shouldn't have done this. Not one thing you can think of that you would ask for forgiveness of.
Well, I shouldn't have done the things that I did, but I don't even remember what I did to her, but I hope and pray that she would forgive me.
Did you have physical fights with your daughter?
No, she had physical fights with me.
You know, one of the big things that is really important in relationships and relationship management is for the people in the relationship to have insight to what they contribute. When you're in a relationship, you either contribute to it or you contaminate it. And if you have zero insight to how you may have contaminated a relationship, it's really hard to affect change. And when you say, I can't think of a single thing, how about you, April? Is there anything you can think of that you would ask forgiveness for or that you would change in your relationship that might start a healing process?
I would ask for her to stop calling me the names. It took away from my self-worth as a child. I was one of those shy, quiet girls that sat in the back and was in a shell. I felt alone. I didn't have a mother who really, truly loved me. She says she loves me, but she was never there to support me. She never interacted with me. She would always cut me down, tell me that I needed to get a better job, that I was worthless, that why can't I be like my siblings? She had more friends than I did, etc.
Okay, that wasn't exactly the question I had in mind, but when we come back, I'm going to ask the two of you a very challenging question, and I'm going to ask it to all four that I've talked to so far, and see if anybody has an answer and can put a verb in the sentence of their answer. And I'm going to ask that question right after the break.
Doormat mom, that lady gave me the serious ick. The narcissism, the blatant entitlement, the way she expects fealty from her own children who are adults. She even talked about instances where she was not invited to her grandkids' concerts and she would just show up. I think some serious boundaries are crossed when you do that. My greatest hope is that people who have adult children now look at this woman as a cautionary tale, because that model of parenting is broken.
Well, that was somebody named Manny weighing in on social media regarding Laura's story, and it's clear Laura struck a nerve. That's one of the problems of being on social media. Opinions are like asses. Everybody's got one, and you have no idea where they come from, what their history is, what their issues are with their parents, but nonetheless, they have a platform. Now, April says she grew up in a home filled with hurt, blame, and emotional scars, but her mother, Karen, remembers it very differently. Believe it or not, April says she cut ties with her mother 30 years ago, 30 years ago, but is open to talking to her today, which I'm very grateful for. You know, I was just asking April and Karen if either one of them could think of something that they would ask for forgiveness for. And the fact of the matter is, I'm going to be real honest. I've been doing this for over 45 years. Kristen, I don't know your mother, haven't met her, don't know anything about her, but I know a fair amount about you. We've asked you a million questions. You were very forthcoming, and I'm talking to you now, and I'm a pretty good judge of people. I have to say there are some people, frankly, are better off without their parents in their lives. We've done reunions of people that are living on the street or living in the underground in Las Vegas, down in the sewers, and we've tried to get them back with their parents. And the first thing we did was locate the people living down under Las Vegas in the sewers, and then we would go find their family. And there were circumstances where we said, you know what? You're better off living under the sewer than you are going back to this family, because there was incest and abuse and horrid situations, and we just stopped. We didn't do the reunion at all. We thought, whatever you're doing is better off than taking you back to this horrid family situation. So we offered them other resources. I mean, I don't think that every family should be reconciled, and some parents just don't have it to give. So I don't think every situation can be saved. I don't think every marriage can be saved. I don't think every family can be saved. But I think when you're dealing with the vast majority of people and they're willing to lean in and take a hard look at themselves, the only person you control is you, then you have to start there. You have to be willing to say, I have to deal with myself first, and then I can be at peace that I've done everything I can do, and then I can rest easy that my door is open, my heart is open, my door is open. I've taken my own inventory. And Laura, I asked you that question. You had no answer for it. I asked April and Karen that question. They have no answer for it. And so my question is to you three, how can that be? How can none of the three of you have any idea of anything you could do, not one possible ownership of anything in your relationship that you could improve on or you could heal to move the relationship forward. Robin and I have 2 boys, and I have a wonderful relationship with both of them, and I can think of 10 things right now I would ask forgiveness for if my boys said, you know, what would you want me to forgive you for? I work too much, I'm impatient, I could just go down a list of things. But fortunately, they're very gracious in putting up with it. But I can think of 10 things, and I have a wonderful relationship, and you 3 can't think of anything, and you have terrible relationships. I can think of 10 things right now I would ask forgiveness for if my boys said, you know, what would you want me to forgive you for? I work too much, I'm impatient, I could just go down a list of things. But fortunately, they're very gracious in putting up with it. But I can think of 10 things, and I have a wonderful relationship, and you 3 can't think of anything, and you have terrible relationships. How is that possible?
Wow. Again, for me, I'm going to say that she was not the one who estranged from me. I took a step back from her. And the reason I can say that is because anything that ever had occurred between her and me or me or any of my children, we dealt with, we talked about.
Okay, but
and if it was,
I get that, but let me stop you. I don't care if it was you that stopped back. Is there nothing you can think of that you could do to help heal that relationship?
Is there nothing I can do? Yes, I can listen to her once I get past the pain of being told that I can't attend something so important as a wedding after being a good parent. And I can understand her, and I can recognize why she might have come to that conclusion. I can certainly keep that door open, and I certainly would keep that door open, but I have to now gain some trust in her, because right now I do not trust her. I do not trust what she could possibly do.
But you're still not owning it. Listen, I'm not saying this is your fault at all. Listen, I'm not convicting you here at all. I don't know your daughter. She didn't want to talk to us. You didn't even want to give us her name. And I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you have to own your part of the situation, and you're setting up a paper tiger and then tearing it down. April, Karen, do either of you have anything to say that doesn't blame the other and says, look, if I'm taking my own inventory, I have to own some of this problem. There's some of this that I have to own. I contributed to this. The only person I control is me, and here's what I could do going forward to make this situation healthier. And I say this because I've buried both of my parents, and let me tell you, when they're gone for a long, long time. There's no second chance. When they're gone, they're gone. Is there anything either of you can say?
I don't like the fact that I have to do this. Nothing changes. I want to forgive her. I want her to forgive me. But we can't get past the constant. I guess I can forgive her for saying all those terrible things to me.
What do you want forgiveness for? I'm not asking you what you want to forgive her for. What do you own? What can you change within yourself? That's what I'm asking. You're not even hearing the question. All right, we have to go to break. Walking away might feel like freedom, but real healing takes work, forgiveness, and hard conversations. And we're going to talk about that next. I want you all to do something for me. Stand up, both of you. Okay, step a little closer. I want you to make eye contact. Don't say a word. Don't look away. In this life anymore, we don't really look at each other. We look past each other, we look around, but we don't really look at each other. Amy, I want you to tell your mother what I wish you would stop doing because it hurts me so much.
I'd like to be able to have like open conversations where we listen to each other about the actual situation at hand. I don't want it turned back on me when situations aren't about me. And, you know, I feel like I'm called names.
Okay, Lynn, I want you to tell Amy what I wish you would stop doing because it hurts me so much. Go.
I wish you would stop pressuring me to change my mind when I say something and accept, like I do with you as an adult. I don't know why, but I know there's got to be a reason, and just accept it. I wish you would stop.
Okay, Lynn, what I wish you would start doing because I need it so desperately.
I don't even know. This is so sad. Neither one of us know.
I know I need trust.
Yeah, I
Okay,
need trust.
Amy?
I need trust, yes.
Tell her what I hope you continue to do because I value it so greatly.
I hope you continue to be fun.
I'll always be fun.
What I hope you continue to do because I value it so greatly.
I feel like you're constantly reminding me that I only have one mom, but I don't need a reminder. You are my mom. If the opportunity comes up, I want you to continue to be a Grammy.
I know that you're going to continue to be the beautiful daughter that you are, the beautiful person that you are, the sensitive person that you are.
A YouGov poll found that nearly 30% of Americans are now estranged from an immediate family member. However, there is good news. Studies show 81% of adult children eventually repair their relationships with their parents. Kristen, help me out here. I'm deputizing you. Put your therapist hat on. Am I nuts here, or am I going down the right path here of saying that these people have to have some ownership in their relationship to ever get on the healing highway? Put your therapist hat on. If you were in this chair where I am right now, would you have to get people to have some ownership?
Yeah, I mean, in order for us to heal, we have to take some form of ownership of our actions in those relationships, because relationships are a two-way street, right? My relationship with my mother is a two-way street. When I went no contact, I took some accountability for my actions as an adult because I did play into a toxic relationship with my mother. And we have to have some form of accountability and some form of awareness that what we were doing wasn't working. Whether or not we see it as wrong or right, it wasn't working.
And it's never a one-way street. And in your case, the risk-reward ratio just simply may not be worth it. You're probably safer psychologically, emotionally, familially, without her in it. The risk-reward ratio is probably not good for you. And it may not be for these other three either, but you guys, Karen, April, Lori, you won't know that until you take a hard look at yourself and say, have I done absolutely everything I can do to prepare this for health going forward? And until you can say that, there's no possible way you can know whether you've done everything you can, and it has every chance to heal. And nobody is blameless. Nobody, zero, zip, nada. Nobody is blameless. And until you own your part of it, you cannot possibly judge somebody else until you've owned your part of it.
But who's saying that we haven't, especially I'm going to talk to for myself, who says we haven't owned our part of it? And who says that hasn't been enough? Like, who says that?
I'm asking you to give me an example. And when you tell me nothing, then all I can go is on what you're telling me. That's who says it is me, because I'm asking you and you're not telling me anything that suggests that.
No,
That's
I'm
why,
not saying any.
that's why I say that.
No, not specifically, because I'm not pulling up specifics, but I've already said that when there were issues, we dealt with them. I believed we dealt with them. I would soon later find out that a lot of what I believed wasn't true. So I had to then take a step back and say, well, what type of relationship actually did I have then? Because I was under the impression that we had one relationship, and then I'm finding out we had a completely different relationship where there wasn't a genuinity or on her part. And so what am I supposed to do with that? I can't guess at whether or not I'm being told the truth.
All right, final thoughts next. I wish we had more time. We could talk about this for another hour because everyone has valid points and we just are out of time to make them. I want to thank all of my guests today, Laura, Kristen, April, and Karen. If you're dealing with a similar situation in your own life, we will have even more information about tonight's episode on our website, so make sure to log on to drphil.com. My latest book, We've Got Issues, How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity, deals with this very issue. Chapter 14 is entitled, The Family is Under Attack. I delve in even deeper into this topic and talk about how our traditional values, such as honor thy mother and father, have diminished in influence. You can get that book everywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.